Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, welcome to the fifth episode of the Shaherald Ramadan Series. And tonight's topic is on our love story and marriage as reverts. Okay, if you're wondering where Sister Aisha today, she has some family matters to attend to, so she wouldn't be able to attend tonight's session. But inshallah, you'll see her again in the next episode. And over here today, we have also the Farus, um, Brother Farus from the United States of America. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks for joining us tonight. And tonight we'll be also inviting another Brother Adnan, who's not here yet, but we'll pull him into the stream when he comes online. Okay, without much further ado, I'll just share with you the charity runs that me and Aisha is doing. First off is what I will be supporting. Okay, this is the charity run in Cambodia, and Rizwan is there right now. He's collecting funds to feed the poor there and the orphans. There will be food distribution packs given to the families over there and the orphans also. So each family will get a kilogram of beef, and each family will get a food pack worth $20 Singapore dollars. And inside the food pack, you get 10 kilograms of rice, some canned goods, mineral water, tea, 3 boxes, condensed milk, and daily essentials. Yeah. We also be building 3 to 4 water wells in Cambodia, and 110 orphans will receive iftar meals to break fast this Ramadan. So be generous, guys, and donate. The information to donate is here. If you are from overseas, you can use a bank transfer. Do note there will be interbank foreign exchange rates charges based on the prevailing rates. And don't forget to include Shahero on your comment section so that the organizer know that it's coming from the stream. And also, you can do a pay now for Singaporeans. It's just a mobile sending of the cash. The funds will be collected there. All right. And Sister Aisha, she's running fundraising for the Minaj Orphan Care Complex in Pakistan. This is a complex built for orphans in Pakistan. So they'll have education and everything available for them, even accommodation and everything. So it's a big complex to house these orphans with all the basic necessities that they need. And right now, they have already collected so far about 2,627 pounds. So inshallah, with your kind donation, we hope to reach 10,000 pounds by the end of Ramadan. All right. So that's what we are running. Feel free to donate, and we're back on the show. Okay, hang on, and let me put us back. All right. Okay. So tonight's topic, we're talking about our love story and marriage as reverts. Maybe I can start off by sharing the concept of love. Okay, in Islam. So far, I read this online. Okay, it says that the notion of love is mentioned in many verses of the Quran, thanks to a wide lexical field of terms expressing with nuances. Sometimes endowed with a strong subtlety, the same idea of attachment and affection between two beings of reality, wudud, which is in chapter 11, verse 90 of the Quran, and yuhib, there's chapter 3, verse 159. Indeed, in order to understand the Islamic view of the relationship between God and the universe or humanity, love plays a crucial role. This love, one of the consequences of which is the mercy associated with it, constitutes the foundation of the bond uniting God to men and the aim of the religion of Islam. In Surah 19, Maryam, verse 96, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. To those who believe and do good deeds, the Almighty will bestow His love, His wood. Uh, in this article, we'll focus on the notion of divine love for its creation and also human love for its creator. So this is an extract that I took from the internet, and it basically talks about Allah's love for us, and also for us when we have a partner, is also part of His love that He has for us, creating a partner for us to be in life. Oh, brother Adnan is here to join us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brother.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks for joining us on such short notice. Sister Aisha couldn't make it, so I asked Brother Adnan if he could step in to share about his love story and about marriage in Islam. So far, what I've just shared is about the importance of understanding love, also to know that it also comes from God, and the concept of divine love also for us. And what do you think about this? Okay, maybe I just throw it to the floor right now, about the concept of love itself in Islam. Maybe anyone could share.
So I could jump in. One of the so in fiqh, there's actually two types of love. Um, Outside of the types of love that you referred, now I'm talking to human love. So there is something that's called like natural or innate love, and then the second is legislated love. So the first love is more centered in the in your emotions, is because you can't help, right? So in most cases, a child loves, right, its mother and father. It you don't have to train to do that. It's natural. And most of the times, let's say, it it's not controllable, right? Like you feel a certain way or you don't feel a certain way. That's natural love. Now, the second type of love um, is not as emotional, but it's legislated love. So, legislated love is that um, you love what is good, you love what is Allah's love, um, you love a person you see doing good, um, but it's not as emotional because if that person stops doing good, you don't continue to love their actions, right? If they switch from good to evil, you switch that love off because it's more of a mental um, love as opposed to an emotional love. So if I said one is more brain centered and one is more heart or nefs centered.
Mm, that's a very interesting take, to understand that love can also be legislative and one is innate, right? That you just mentioned. And we always, identify love also by, I'm looking at the legislative love, right? Or people get confused between both types of love that you just described. For example, when somebody scold you, your parents scold you, or hurt you in a certain way by maybe giving you a tap on the shoulder and say, no, don't do that, brother, or something, you might get offended by it, and you might think that they do it out of anger, right? But it could also be love. How do you relate to this notion then, from what you just said about love itself? Do you think love can also come in a way that people might misinterpret it as anger and actually is love?
I haven't thought about that. The one example that I definitely could think of, right? So when the Qur'an gives permission to marry women who are Jewish or Christian who have not engaged in zina. Um, so you're not like and there are other parts where it says, it commands, the Muslims to love the believers and not love, the disbelievers. So now you're married to a woman who's a Jewish or Christian woman. What do? Right? Well, the natural love, right? You're going to have natural love for her, um, which is, the love of the heart, love the person who's bearing your children, that you're um, sleeping next to at night, that you're sharing life experiences to. But the legislated love, which is a command from Allah to love the believers, right? That's more of a mental love. And that same would apply if someone, let's say, is a convert to Islam and they have, non-Muslim parents. They're going to have that natural love for them. But any of the haram they're doing, they're not going to have a legislated love, for that.
Mm-hmm. What about the um attributes of Allah, right? Okay, one of the reminders we can find in the meaning of love is that is widely mentioned in the Quran in many ways, such as the divine qualities of Allah in multiple verses, right? Like for example, we call him the protector, the most wise. the kind, Al-Rauf, the kind, Al-Wali, the protecting friend, Al-Latif, the gentle, Al-Ghafur, the forgiving, Al-Rahim, the merciful, Al-Wudud, right? We give him, so I mean, he gives us all these 99 attributes, which is just a part of his sections of how he described himself, to loving us, right? Is this part of legislative love or innate love? I'm wondering.
It probably could be either, depending upon what level you're on. So, if you're calling on Allah through those names and, asking him to empower you to be a human mirror of those attributes at first, when you probably start, depending upon what level you are when you make that dua. But if you're just, more of a common person, at first you're probably just doing it robotically, right? Which is, legislated love, just like, oh Allah, I ask you through your name, I will do to increase me in your love, or something like that. First, you're probably saying it robotically. There might be a time when you're saying it with your whole heart. So, I would say it would probably start off legislative on most cases, but it could, turn to, natural over time.
Mm-hmm.
But more likely to start in the legislative branch, because natural is normally something that can't be helped, and very few people, I think, have that natural love for their creator.
Yeah.
It's something usually cultivated or developed.
Yeah, I think you briefly said it, and I feel that we all have this natural innate love towards beauty as well, right? Beauty and perfection. Also this innate love for someone who kind of like a parent, like a father who loves you, someone who really cares for you. That's like a form of hope for you in this world, and you develop this kind of reliance on that hope, and the best person to rely on is none other than God, right? So I think that is like where I feel the core of my existence is. In fact, I think that I have innate love for God, and that's why I seek truth. And when I seek truth and I find the answer and I find God, then I'm connected to Him again. I think that's where I mean, I'm just sharing about this innate love and what you just said. Yeah. What do you have to add, Brother Adnan? Do you have anything to add to what we just discussed?
I really like that what Brother Farooz shared. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Farooz. I watched the video.
Oh, thank you.
And enjoyed it.
I was looking forward to watching yours as well.
Inshallah. Yeah, I really like that. Never heard that before, that legislated love, but really, yeah, it makes sense. I think now I'm in a transition, I think, from the lessons I've had, and I see the wisdom of it, that we really need to shift. And I really like what you said. Yeah, it's about the level that you're in, the level of your nafs, really. As we progress in life, we need to level up that nafs from that bestial, that toddler-like nafs that's all about me. I want now. We need to progress up to that higher level nafs. And that's what this life is about, really. And then as we progress, that's when we get more into that legislated love, as that would become more, would start to make sense more, But yeah, if your nafs is not there, it would not make sense to you. The whole idea of loving for the sake of Allah, it will just be an intellectual concept. It will not, it will just be words until we get to that higher, that more. When we do that work, that nafs work, that progression, and then we will start to that intellectual, the legislated love would start to make more sense. And I feel like I'm in that that transition phase now. I'm starting to, because I've learned my lessons and so wait, let me see. So yeah, the desires, that lower level of the nafs is all about desires. It's like I see a beautiful woman, okay, that's it, I want it now. But if a man is going to fall for it, that's literally, I read a book by Ibn Qayyim, and just the meaning of the word Hawa itself, desire in itself, the Arabic meaning itself, there is also the meaning of falling, or to fall. SubhanAllah, the Arabic language is so amazing, so deep. But yeah, that I think a lot of men have fallen in history to their desires, and that progression, that growth into that nafs that can do it to do the legislated love for the sake of Allah, that can only come from that work, that jihadul nafs, where you're not just driven by your desires, because men fall. I don't know about women, because for men, women are the biggest desire, you see. So that's like our biggest weakness, and we can fall. And many have. So yeah, I really like that. I think it's really important that if a man is going to survive, because if a broken heart will break you, it can break your iman as well. So a man really needs to guard himself in this. This is like his greatest weakness, and he really needs to pay attention to this. So yeah, that's just some thoughts on this.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, broken heart. I think both sexes, men and women, they do face broken heart issues, and I mean, the devil also uses this as a way to separate people and to cause problems, right? And to create conflict, and it's our greatest strength and weakness, I would say. Love, at the same time, yeah. But we are always confused with what is in front of us, the kind of love you see and feel, even versus the one that is more powerful and more related to truth as well, the love for truth. I think, for example, I wouldn't deny that, when you first meet a girl and she's beautiful in front of your eyes, you would just feel like you want to talk to her more, right? You want to be around her all the time. You want to take her out, you just want to spend time and communicate and see where it goes from there. So um from a Muslim perspective, right, of love, is it true that there's okay? Is there something at first love, fall in love in first sight? What's that term you call it? Love at first sight? Yeah, love at first sight. What's your take on love at first sight, brothers? Does it happen?
I mean, I believe it's possible. I mean, I know, people say it's not really love, it's lust or this, that, but uh, I don't know how you can tell someone else that unless you've measured that. And love technically can be measured, uh, like the actual chemical composition, you know, that creates the feelings of love. I mean, so to say it can't happen, I think that there's enough stories in history, enough uh, poems in history and stuff to demonstrate that. Though I personally hypothesize that um, it's connected to the innocence of a society. Like, I think um, if you're in a society that exposes people to things that they shouldn't be exposed to from a young age, they're less likely to feel that. I think it's more likely to happen in a more um, conservatively religious, or just more, even if non-religious, is a more conservative type of environment where boys and girls don't have a lot of access to each other, a lot of access to um, haram, you know, and then when they see someone, they have those feelings. I mean, I know I used to get those feelings up to a certain age, like, up to like 13, but then, once, you get exposed to a lot more, it, it goes away. And I think, that's also one of the wisdoms to not having a lot of partners, because the more partners you have, the more likely you are to break up, the less likely you are to, commit to love long term.
I think that's very well said. Yeah. Mm. So for you, brother, how did you? Okay, share your love story. How did you met? How did you meet your wife? And that's how the story progressed on to today.
So I've been married more than once, so I'm going to tell kind of more than one story so as not to embarrass, you know, anyone, if so they don't have to figure out which is which and feel embarrassed. So, and I have a video actually on my channel about how to find a spouse, and much of what's on that some of what's on that video is research, but some of it is actual experience. And so, I met one of the people I was married to through people at the mosque, and another time I met someone online. And so, those were the two, ways that I met people. Once you meet people, though, usually, communicate first through email or chat, and then on the phone. Um, I still think it's best, even though it's not that easy in our times. It should be. Um, I do believe it's best to be talking to the person in front of her father, brother, whatever, because like I personally think that khalwa, seclusion, is more like physical, but it's also not. Um, there's the zina of the eye, the zina of the tongue, the zina, of the body, and only the zina of the body is possible in physical seclusion. Um, but there's still the opportunities for the other zina to creep in if if there's not a third party, basically, between uh, um, you.
Hmm. So with regards to Muslim dating, right? Muslim dating. Do you think that works? I mean, how does it work when you have no real interaction with a woman, right? Because of you're afraid of getting too close and committing something that's wrong. How should young people move forward with relationships in the future in Islam, or how should they really get married?
So, like, I know that when what some families do, which is makes sense, is that, like, okay, you'll go to a restaurant, or you'll meet somewhere in a public place. They'll sit far enough away or close enough where they could see you, but far enough away to where they're not going to hear everything you say, so that they can supervise, but yet still allow the people to get to know each other. I mean, that's the ideal. A lot of things don't always work. The ideal, especially for those who um, come to Islam, or even especially, I think, for those who are raised in a more melting pot Muslim environment, right, where you got um, many different ethnic groups living in the same area, and some families want them to marry someone from the same ethnic group, but are not necessarily raising them around everyone with the same ethnic group. And so, those are issues that, are challenged and beyond that.
I see. Yeah, I think you're right to say that you don't have to see the person face to face so closely, right? You can always put a third or fourth person in between you and her, and you can still have a conversation in the group. You can you can gather in groups, right? And men and women can be separated, but you can kind of like glance over the other side from time to time, and you can see like a brief view of the lady. But I think in Islam we just go straight to the parents, right? If you're interested to get married with the person, yeah. If you just hear the conversation that you have with the lady from a distance, in fact, or even in a group setting, and you think that she is someone who probably is very interesting, you can probably have long conversations with that person. And but the Prophet, peace be upon him, also mentioned how to identify, right? How to identify a good spouse, and that is to look at how they treat their parents. So, I know in Western culture you don't really see the parents because that means it's serious thing or serious business. Uh, and I think most guys try to avoid that, or ladies too. So how do you deal with that? Like seeing the parents. How do you tell the girl, okay, I want to see your parents so that you know it means something is gonna happen after this. I'm gonna get married to you.
Um, I think honestly the best way is just be straightforward, say
Yeah.
it.
Also, hi, I'm interested in you. So can I straight?
Oh, okay. You mean like a
Yeah.
that's so I think at that point sometimes it could be best to have an adult advocate for you
Mm-hmm.
that's of the same community as the person where you're trying to marry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So have an adult in the middle as like the middle man. Oh,
Yeah, to approach her father for you.
okay. Oh. Well, what about brother Adnan? What would your advice be on this? Like how you approach this? Do you think it's okay to put like, I don't know, some guys would put online, right? Looking for a spouse, and and then somebody would say, okay, maybe I'm interested in you too, and let's meet up with your parents or something. Do you think that's a good idea too? Like digitally, virtual?
Well, I've been trying to wrap my head around this because I want to do it right this time, learning from the lessons of the past. And I think that in we are very far from the Sunnah, in general. I mean, just this idea of free mixing between the sexes, this is not Islamic. And yet it's so normalized today that we don't even know. So many Muslims don't even know that you're not supposed to free mix, and it opens the door, to all the evils. And just the fact that the female is the man's greatest weakness and you leave that door wide open and free mix, and we wonder why the society is a mess. Like, Muslim dating wise, I fear Allah since we from the tribulations. So now I want to be very careful in how I go about it. So I've been still learning about the fiqh of how to go about, seeking a prospect. And I think a lot of us, once again, it's about the nafs and that iman thing, because it's so much easier to just do it the way everyone's doing it, just say hi to a girl and blah, 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 you know. And the traditional way feels like, it's like, it almost feels completely foreign. It's like, what, you expect me to go? Am I, it's like so weird. Am I supposed to go up to a girl and say I like you just based on her looks and straight away go to her dad? It's like so weird, right? It doesn't seem to make sense. So traditionally, what we are supposed to do, from what I've been studying recently, is supposed to do background checks, basically. I mean, you can marry a woman for, I think there's a hadith that says you can marry a woman for wealth, the looks, the religion. One more is lineage. These are the reasons people usually marry women, right?
We got a
But today,
comment.
I think,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on. There's a comment from the audience here. Why don't you go through a matchmaker that is trusted among the community?
yeah,
think that
that
works?
really, yeah, I think that is definitely a safe way to go about it. Because the thing is, we're not supposed to be interacting. I mean, there's also a hadith that says when there's a man and a woman, the third one is the shaitan. We need to be really careful about this. And so, but you said this about love at first sight, right?
Yeah.
There's also a hadith for that. We can't deny that looks is like important. We can't be all iman and just look at religiosity. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Look at her, and you look at her, you should want to marry her." But it's not you look at her and you want to marry her. There are also other things you should be looking at. And the best reason to marry a woman is her religion. Because you can get blindsided if you go on looks alone, Like what I said, falling for your desires. You got to look at a lot more. So background checks, right? You look at a lot of things like family background, how she was raised, and things like that. It's supposed to do background checks, and not so much the usual dating thing is like you talk to her and find out, oh, what are your hobbies, blah blah blah. But we're supposed to do more sleuthy kind of work, background work. Talk to her wali instead. Not directly to the person. Because the problem is when we talk directly to a prospect, we're always putting up a front. We can't even help it. It's not that we are all manipulative liars, but I think we also have trauma. We always want to put our best front, and it's not going to be, 100% authentic. We're always going to put up our best Instagram version of ourselves, right?
Yeah. True. What about arranged marriage then? Do you think that works?
Yeah,
arranged marriage.
If you asked me this 5 years ago, I'll be like, what are you talking about? But now I'm like, yes. But you really gotta arrange marriage. I mean, some countries, they oppress people with arranged marriage. So you really gotta look at some people are forced to marry through arranged marriages, and then because of this, they think arranged marriage is, oppression, but it's not supposed to be. It's actually your father. Actually, if I'm the father, I would be the best one to find
the right spouse or something.
Spouse for my daughter, you know what I mean? I will really look at the guy, and I'm a man, I know what to look for. I look at one guy and I know this guy, he's not good. I'm not letting this guy anywhere near my daughter. You know what I mean?
But
these are all things.
What if you said that's how you feel that like that is like what you feel, and I want to marry this guy. For example, okay, in an arranged marriage, for example, okay, you're looking at a few suitors for her, and maybe guy A and guy B. You like guy B, she likes guy A. How are you going to come to terms with that? Are you going to like, how are you going to say?
Yeah,
no,
it's like a fitna, isn't it? That's the thing, man. That's the thing. It's parenting. It's really parenting. You can't be letting your child go and free mix her whole life and then expect her to make the right decisions with regard to a prospective spouse. She's, you know what I mean? It's tarbiyah. You have to raise her up upon Islamic foundations. Then she will know how to guard herself. She be modest. If she's modest alone, she's going to be not even a consideration for all the wrong kinds of men. So if the parenting is done right, the tarbiyah is there, you won't have that kind of issue. You know what I mean? That's what I feel, at least. That it's so much to do with how we raise our kids. Yeah.
Please. Yeah, thanks. What about brother? What do you think about arranged marriage? I know it's in the West, right? These things can be taboo, like arranged marriage. They don't think it's good.
I actually think there's a higher probability of a marriage working if it's arranged. I actually, though, think a semi-arranged marriage would probably be the most ideal. And by semi-arranged, it's where, the parents are arranged, so there's like a blind arranged marriage where your parents just pick for you and you don't see the person, and like that, I don't think is the best course or as comfortable. But a semi-arranged is where your parents are looking for you, but you still can say yes or no. So I think that is the ideal and most likely to work. I think the romantic marriages are most likely to fail in the long run. That's just based upon my knowledge of statistics. And I saw the question, what about going through a matchmaker and trusted community? Yeah, that's an option. I've done that. And I also think I think it also varies. If you're like a Muslim convert, let's say in the West, I think you have to have a larger menu of options than, let's say, a born Muslim in a Muslim country, or even a born Muslim in a large Muslim community in the West of people of similar ethnic backgrounds. Just because, on average, in some ways it's harder for converts, in some ways it's easier. So in the way I think that it's easier is if you're in a place where there's a large number of converts, people can get married quicker because there's usually not all the steps, culturally in between to prevent that from happening. But if you're a convert, I think you have to have multiple ways of going about it, because it's not always, so you might put in at one masjid, oh, they got one person, okay, it doesn't, you guys aren't a fit, well, that's all there is right now. So it can be, so that is an option. One of the things I recommend in my video on how to find a spouse in the West, is to go within multiple local communities, so multiple communities matchmakers, just because it just, you need more options. And I know, people say trust in Allah, but they trust in Allah and tie your camel, right? Like, you still have to use the means of the world, like the asbab of the world. You don't sit around and make dua and say, oh Allah, give me a wife, and then one appears at your door. Despite you have stories like that, and like people tell, it's, if it ever happens, it's what, 1 in a billion, so, reality is you deal with the means of the world, and then you have to go from ideal to real. I would say always prefer the ideal, but then, you have to go down to real. So I think, these Muslim matrimonial websites, are a sign that the ideal is not always easy for everyone, or else you wouldn't even need those, right? So it's just like if you go to a community and you know there's a number of suitable matches and you get enough people to help you find and vouch for you, you can do that. Otherwise, it gets a little harder, especially if you're
Mm.
not the guy who's in the masjid every day, painting the walls, fixing the walls. It gets harder for people to actually vouch for you. And that's why uh, I've seen a lot of people through the investigation process in the West hasn't necessarily worked as well in the East because, be like, oh, he's a good brother. He has a beard. He's a good brother. He wears a thobe. When it comes to the mosque, he's a good brother. He has a kufi. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he's a good brother. I've, seen him use Arabic words. Or I've seen him at this a lot, but it's like, okay, but you don't like those are all outward. But a lot of times people can't comment on the inward because,
They
you
can't
know,
see it. I think they're not exposed enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Or
about
they can't even describe something that's inside, right? It's hard to relay that to someone as well.
yeah. So what
Yeah.
about you, brother Firdaus?
For me, I think okay. In we are living in a world which is hypersexualized. You see, screens of people dressed scantily, men and women. And the screens are available to us everywhere, not only on TV, in your phone, laptop, and you have like Netflix, and you have like all kinds of social media as well out there. Twitter, people with their profile pics, and stuff. Instagram, instant stuff, right? And now they have upgraded that to Tinder, Coffee Meets Bagel, Meet Online, Ask Her Out online, stuff like that. Now this is evolving, right? The game of love, or call it something. On Netflix they even had Too Hot to Handle, something like that. This kind of topics, and they just screen these kind of images in front of you, and you can have children in the house, right? And you say, oh no, you should not be watching this, you should not be even looking at these uh selections of videos that adults can watch, right? How do we then, I mean, I see it a very challenging era to come for our children. I mean, they say fitna is everywhere, right? Now it's literally women with tight body outfits also, um I mean, men and women, we are created differently, I would say, are wired differently. Um, that's the reason why we are men, and that's the reason why they're women. I mean, if we were all wired the same, then it'd be odd, right? Talking to myself, I guess. Yeah. Um. So for men, what I only can say about men, because I'm a guy, so we are wired in a way to look at beauty from our eyes, I think, initially, how we see beauty, and then we observe and we try to communicate with the person, and we get a good feeling out of it, and then love happens, right? um and I mean, men, we also fantasize on a life with that person, and then we think about getting married. um but now, if with all this instant stuff, I have friends who are on those platforms like Tinder and stuff like that. There are some guys who really just want to find love and get married, but you'll be surprised, in places like Singapore, we have women that say, I'm just here for a good time. I'm not here for serious relationships. You know, the word serious relationships is now kind of like a very scary thing for people. Sounds like you need to have commitment. You need to be careful, and you don't want to get hurt again. You don't want to be in a serious relationship and get hurt. It's like we're in a vicious cycle, don't you think? It's like the reason why we don't want to take relationships seriously, I'm thinking, it's because we are afraid of getting hurt ourselves. Because you just need to get involved at that moment in time for a period of time and you just get out, right? It's like it's just settle that need and desire to feel that you are with someone at that point of time, and then when you leave and okay, you can find someone else, so you never get hurt. And people are not used to getting hurt in our time now. In the era now when we have Tinder and everything, you just want quick fixes. You just want to get get into a relationship just because you feel lonely at that point in time, and when you feel that, oh, I need to be alone again, I don't want to be with someone, just leave the person, right? And the person just feel heartbroken. So we go back in this cycle again to look for the next person. And where does that take us? I mean, where does it take our society when people start doing that? Are we creating more, responsible population of people that truly desire to have a commitment in life, or are we creating people that just, probably even have legitimate children out of this, right? And then more orphans maybe. It's a very serious question because in society now, demographics are looking like, okay, at least for us, we are not growing in population wise. Singapore, right? Our population is stagnant, not really growing. And for many parts of the world, I'm not sure. Are we going to a world of really, we can't really get a true love and marriage going on? I mean, that's the question I have no answer for, but I'm just putting out there so that maybe people can share some of their ideas and thoughts on this topic. Yeah. Anything to add, Brother Adnan, to what I just said? Does it make any sense?
I do, man. Where we headed? Straight to the hellfire, bro. Oh my goodness. We are transgressing the boundaries set by Allah, all these skyrocketing divorce rates. Like what you said, it's a lot of trauma, I mean, I feel from what I've looked into so far, the trauma starts from emotional neglect from parents because they are so busy trying to work and earn money. Then the child is neglected, and then you can look into attachment styles, where the child doesn't have a secure attachment figure. We got serious mental health issues today. A lot of it is stemming from these insecure attachment that is formed in childhood. So because of this, from the emotional neglect, children are always seeking validation, acceptance, love, seeking love in all the wrong places because of the trauma, We got abandonment wounds and all this stuff. So what happens when they get a bit older? When they're young, they are kept in place, kept in line by either authoritative parents or whatever. But the moment they become teens, the moment they have some freedom, then they start to mix with friends, and then they get into trouble. They don't go back to the parents. They don't listen to the parents because the parents were never there. They were never a safe place. So the parents can't guide them anymore, So we get into trouble in this way, that once again, parenting. SubhanAllah, everything I would say just goes back to parenting. Such a huge trust. Children are an amana. If we're going to fix our ummah, we got to start with the family, with ourselves first, work on that nafs, and then we got to, break that cycle. I really feel that it starts with the child. So the child, doesn't know how to seek, doesn't feel complete, doesn't feel safe with the parents, so it seeks love and gets hurt by some youngster who probably doesn't even know. Let's say from a girl's perspective, she's like suddenly she's getting male attention from men of all ages as she grows up. And then, unfortunately, she gets into relationships, which she shouldn't. If she was brought up with tarbiyah and modesty, she wouldn't. She would know how to protect. Or if there were advances, she would have her parents to come in and protect, which is often not happening. So, you know, this is why I say straight to the hellfire, because that neglect sets off everything, and then we get into relationships and trauma, and then the heart breaks, and then there's all these things like rebound relationships, and once the heart breaks, it can start a really bad, you know,
Cycle, vicious cycle. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I agree with you wholeheartedly in the sense that it starts from the family, really. Um, we chase. I mean, we want to support the family, provide for the family, and then family. I mean, I'm a parent myself, right? I'm working. My wife is working, and try to feed for the family. But my wife and I, my wife always reminds me to at least spend quality time with your children. Spend time, set aside time for him or her. And I try to remind myself always, not to just keep working so that I can meet a certain target or so that I can bring home more than enough cash for the family. Um, there's all these are already written by God that you're supposed to earn how much per day, for example, or you're supposed to earn how much per month. And we transgress our boundaries, basically focus too much on one thing instead of dividing our time across multiple other important things. The neglect has a consequence, and those consequences is if you have a daughter and she needs your attention, we may feel that there's not enough father love and attention, and she desires to be with a man all the time because maybe the guy gives her that attention that she's lacking from her father. um I know personally of friends who wear the hijab and they might go into a club and take off the hijab and straight away start looking for a guy in the club, and they're Muslims. You know, it's quite it's quite odd, right? I mean, like that's the reality of life. In front of the parents, they're wearing their hijab and they go to school, and the innocent person, you see them, and then when you go to the club, and the next thing you see, off goes the hijab, and there I am. That's a second alter ego or something, Yeah. But it's the reality down on the ground, right? Many people are experiencing that. And how can we change that? How can we, have better connection with our children? I think um, sharing the knowledge of Islam, we must first ourselves increase our knowledge so that we can advise our own children. That's one. Then I think reduce screen times, phones, TVs, laptops, games, not say not do any of them, but we have to moderate everything. I personally know people who literally download Disney channels and edit away the parts where they think it's not necessary, like the prince and princess kissing, or um, those scenes that you don't need them in the Disney shows, and the shows still make sense. So why were they in there in the first place, you wonder, right? And so these are all like subconscious kind of reminding us to always play our part as parents, to keep your children in check, to ensure that they are guided, because we are their guidance as well. Besides, God gave us children so that we can guide them too. So yeah, it starts from the family, and when we need to be that safety net for our children, so that when they make a mistake, instead of scolding them or dishing out a full few rules like, no, you need to now do your tahajjud for 20 rakats or something because you make a mistake like that, or something like that. Some people will do that, right? Or punishment. Uh, Instead of doing that, we should, I think, reason with them and explain to them why we feel it's wrong, or why we think that is something that we do not want to see our children to walk down a dark path. And again, we can only show the ropes, right? But at a certain age, it is they who have to make that choice themselves, because every one of us is answerable to God on our own at the end of the day. That's my take on this. But anything to add, brothers? Oh yeah, one thing that the audience say: reminder, beauty does not last, but when you know the person is kind, God fearing, and hardworking, amongst the many other things, are one of the many things you should be looking for. So he agrees with you. Yeah. Anything else there before we end tonight's stream?
yeah. I
Uh,
just want to add. that
There you go.
we really should be looking at alignment. You know, it really doesn't matter which level you're at in terms of nafs, your progression, it really doesn't matter. But make sure your partner is somewhere around the same area, because it's about compatibility. So we really got to look at alignment in values. We need to know ourselves first and foremost, and we need to know our values and look for alignment in that partner. Values. What are your values? Like truth or hard work, whatever it is. Find out what your values are and look in your research. Look for alignment in values. I think it's so important. A lot of breakdowns happen in this, where you look at the looks or you look at very superficial things, and later you realize this person
Different values.
does not have the values I hold, and things fall apart. And yeah, values, beliefs. Yeah, you got your religion, but there's also other things.
Yeah.
Things that are just very strong, things that you hold very strongly, and personality as well. I'm an introvert, and I think I'm better off with an introvert. So things like that. Personality really plays a big factor as well, I think. So these are
Thanks
things
for
I think we really got to look at. Yeah.
thanks for taking the courage to come on the show, even being an introvert, brother. Yeah, I really appreciate that, and that's also the reason why in Islam we want we only allow a person to get married if you're a Muslim, because then we have a same religious vision in life, working towards the same belief system. At least the way of life is the same. You reduce the kind of problems might probably have in a family, and that's why in Islam we encourage people to marry someone of similar faith. Yeah, yeah, brother Ferus, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that I think some of our challenges are, and like the ones that you mentioned, are a symptom of us not following the Sunnah. So according to the Sunnah, you know, the recommended ages of marriage are different than um, for people who are striving for the deen, are different than people who are striving from the dunya. And often in families, you get a mixture of both. So it's like you might get parents who don't want their kids to get married until after they finish medical school. So like 30 years old, right?
Yeah.
Now for that's, it's not haram according to the Sunnah, but it's not the normative practice of the Sunnah. And so if people knew their fiqh and were following it, you have the 5 stages of marriage. I actually have a video mentioning that, the 5 stages of marriage. And then not the 5 stages of marriage, the 5 rulings, the ahkam of marriage, the conditions to get married. Like, so it could be fard at times, sunnah at times, halal at times, makruh, and even haram at times. So if people were knowing that and living according to it, and accepting that any of their children will fall into any of those 5 categories. So if it becomes obligatory, or if it becomes sunnah to get married, then the parents should be encouraging it, not wait until 30. Now some people can, but the others are gonna, their body's gonna take over, and if they're in a society where it's going to be repressed, and they're going to be unhappy, it's going to lead to other challenges. And if if you're living in a society where it's not encouraging it, you're basically inviting your children to break. And then I think that once they break, some will come back, but some are one step further to leaving totally. Whereas if the sunnah was lived and practiced, those issues I don't think would be there. Except in rare cases, I mean, even Omar had a son who he had to flog for drinking alcohol, right? So, and we're talking about the time of the Sahaba. So, I'm not going to say that what you said would never happen. It just wouldn't be as prevalent.
Yeah, this is well said, brother. All right. So, without we're coming to the end of the stream, before we go, I just want to remind you that we are running a charity support fundraising program. Okay. Over here. Yep. So, Brother Rizwan is in Cambodia. If you like to donate to the children orphans in Cambodia and the underprivileged ones, do note that you can donate. Each family will get a kilogram of beef, $20 worth of food pack, and inside you have 10 kilograms of rice, some canned goods, mineral water, tea, and also daily necessities. We'll be building 3 to 4 wells in Cambodia, and 110 orphans will be fed their iftar meals during the entire month of Ramadan. All right, and this is the details to donate. Singapore, you can donate through PayNow, bank transfer for overseas. And just take note that there will be a foreign exchange rates charges on the transfer, and don't forget to include Shaherald on your comment section. Sister Aisha will be also supporting the Minash Orphan Care Complex fundraising project in Pakistan. These are Pakistan's children, the orphans. This complex will be built for them to house them, to educate them, and to also help them to get on to the workforce in life in the future as well. So don't be shy, be generous, and donate this Ramadan. And may Allah reward you for your kind donations. Yep. And to just sum up tonight's program, right? We should
Sorry,
also
can I just add one more thing?
Yes, brother Anan. Yes.
Sorry. A lot of what I said points to parenting, right? So that's also one of the biggest things that you have to look at with your potential spouse. Parenting style. Figure out what your parenting style is, whether you're a very involved parent and stuff like that. Parenting style is huge because when we're getting married, we're basically starting a new family. We're creating the future. And there has to be alignment in how you're going to run this, institution. If one wants to run it another way and this one wants to run it another way, it's going to fall apart. So the parenting style is really important. I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah. So, brother, you're also a teacher, right?
Yeah.
You teach autistic children, right?
Yeah.
Do you see parents often, and do you see any feedback from you as a teacher?
I work with parents closely, but what kind of feedback? In terms of what I see is, in general, this is not just in special needs. In fact, now things are kind of merging. It's like mainstream and special needs is kind of merging. You can't even tell. The behavioral issues are all getting intertwined. The mainstream kids are having the same issues, the behavioral issues. A lot of it is just stemming back to, the special kids, they have physiological issues, but in terms of the cure in mending the behavioral issues, it all comes down to the same thing. The children need a safe place. They need acceptance. They need to, simple as that. Actually, even in your relationship with your partner, it's about making your partner feel safe. If you could just learn to do this, if you learn from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he did was he made people feel safe with his mercy. That is it. Make people feel safe, because a lot of us are traumatized from childhood. And if we could just heal and heal our wounds and not pass it on to the next generation and make people feel safe, that is the key. So I work with some kids who are very severely their severe needs, high needs, they get very anxious. The key trait is anxiety. They don't feel safe. They don't feel accepted. And it's the same thing. You want to feel a child with autism feel safe, accept them, be gentle with them. When they are having a hard time, when they are abusing you, be patient, sabr. The cure is Islam for everything. Alhamdulillah. If you just, yeah, man. So making the children feel safe, acceptance and mercy and things like that. Yeah, that's what I have seen. The children really need to feel safe.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Thanks for sharing that, brother, and the insight as a teacher who teaches autistic children. Yeah. So just to end tonight's session, just remember, love also not just between you and God. You also have to love your fellow human beings and also love the entire planet that God has created. So you love God's creation as well as God. But of course, God is above all. And Allah specifically say His mercy encompasses all things. And if you should count the favors of Allah, you will never be able to number them. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. Thank you all for joining tonight's live stream. And thank you, brothers and sisters in Islam, for watching the show. I'm sorry Sister Aisha couldn't join tonight because she has some family matters. And inshallah, in the next episode, we'll see her again. And to all the panelists, thanks for joining tonight. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum